Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Frontiers of Knowledge. It was 1918, a century back, that the whole world was hit by a pandemic. It was the influenza pandemic, and that was the first time a disease was of that virulent nature over a widespread area. And the first time the use pandemic was used from epidemic because it had crossed all boundaries and everything. And fortunately, after that 100 years, the whole world was spared from anything of that level. There have been diseases, there have been pandemics, but the danger and the mortality caused by the flu endemic has never been equal till now. And you'll be shocked that this year there is a danger of outbreak of new virus, new illness. The disease has not been identified. WHO calls this disease X. What happens is that known incurable diseases are hidden in the corner, the depths of the universe, and nobody knows it. Thousands of unknown viruses circulate around the globe. But for the sake of experimentation and potentially also for the fighting a bacteria war, a biological war, now the scientists have started researching on the biological agents to see if it's possible to make them more deadly and killing. And then this scientific experience lets loose dangerous microbes that can kill us. And that is why the WHO has added a potential threat of disease X. X stands for unknown. The rest of the disease is mostly unknown, and there are conditions with which we are capable of dealing. There are hemorrhagic fevers like Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, Ebola, Marburg, Lassa, Rift Valley fever, nymph, Henny viral diseases. They are legion. There are other priority illnesses include coronavirus like MERS and SARS. And recently, last year and year before last, we were afflicted with a disease called Zika. Viruses and bacteria, what happens when they go to the body, they mutate and become more deadly and uncurable. And there's a constant risk that the new diseases would come up. They jump from their host to the humans. Actually, the animal world which has those viruses, but living in nature without partaking of the antibiotics, they are immune to those attacks. When those viruses and those animals carrying those viruses come in contact with human beings, the disease happens. They are much more deadly when they afflict the humans. So it's quite possible that some pathogen can cause the next pandemic, the endemic called disease X. It's something we don't know how to react to. If you know a disease, you can take preventive steps. There's a flu, take very well, face mask, don't go in the public, wash your hands, and so on and so forth. But when the new diseases emerge, then you are face to face with an unknown danger. You don't know the quality of the enemy. You don't know how you can destroy the enemy. And you have left either to the experimentation by the doctors, hit and trial method, or be prepared to say goodbye to the life. And this is exactly what happened when Zika first emerged. we could not stop Zika from spreading rapidly. And that rapid spread called devastating results to unknown disease. It is, as WHO says, is one we don't know how dangerous it is. Seemingly, non-threatening diseases have become much more deadly than you can imagine. The traditional research at NIH, National Institute of Health, says that certain viruses known as coronaviruses are relatively harmless. But then SARS came, and in 2002 to 2003, more than 8,000 people were killed, and more than 10 times that means 80,000 were infected. 10 years passed, people forget SARS, and then came MERS, MERS. Both of them ended up that could cause the next pandemic, as did Zika, which till now was not considered a dangerous disease or a disease which could spread across the continent. But now, an existing pathogen in life can mutate, and after mutation cause a pandemic. It is certain, doctors say, and the WHO has warned, and I fail to understand whether governments have not reacted to that warning, and the warning is very clear. And I read it, WHO's warning, we'll eventually see a disease like 1918 pandemic influenza. That was the deadliest event in the human history. And this disease X, would be much more deadly than it was earlier because of the faster transportation of the virus. Human beings are infected. There's an incubation period. In that incubation period, you're traveling to different countries. And wherever you go, you leave that virus behind. So the mutated flu, has long been a contender to be possible next pandemic. But then there can be others. According to Dr. Jonathan Quick, who is a faculty member of the Harvard Medical Council and chair of the Global Health, our farm factories are the biggest danger. They are a perfect incubator, according to him, for causing a pandemic flu. There are thousands of close together pigs, and these are potentially exposed to chicken and wild birds, which creates a perfect opportunity for transferring any pathogen from a pig to chicken to human beings. And there's no barrier anywhere. And these factory farms, rather, as I'll call them, create perfect opportunity that the genes needed to start infecting mammals like pigs and humans would spread from there. The influenza virus they spawn can one day annihilate the whole world, and that's a danger. Secondly, there's a danger of the terrorist organizations taking hold of those viruses. They could intentionally create and spread a pandemic disease. Melinda Gates said recently that this global war, biological basis, undeclared global war of human beings can be a cause of pandemic. And she says you have got to do something on the world level, like CDC focused on the bioterrorism. According to WHO, it's definite that deadly new virus shall appear. And if you are living in a high density area, you are more exposed to that danger. It's just a matter of time until the new pandemic falls down. Shocking, isn't it? So, one has to be prepared. And the best is to move as close to the nature as possible. But then if that was the only thing, I wouldn't have bothered. We, as human beings, are exposed to various things. Especially environment. When the people talk of environmental, they talk of water pollution, wastewater pollution, air pollution, and so on and so forth, noise pollution. And now there's another pollution, which is much more dangerous. It's affecting us biologically, creatively, and coupled with a WHO warning can be a disaster. And this is artificial light, which causes light pollution. According to the NASA's latest report, artificially lit outdoor areas have increased and are increasing every year by about 2.5 to 3%. And this increase has been observed globally: Asia, South America, Africa, half of Europe, quarter of North America. Is much more brighter today, 10 to 15% than it was in 2012. Only very small number of countries like USA, Spain, and Italy have the same amount of artificial light because they were well lighted before. But countries like India or Pakistan or China, they were not well lighted, and now they are well lighted. So there are only two countries where light pollution is decreasing. That is Syria and Yemen. And why? Because they're fighting a civil war, and as nobody wants to give an artificial light. Now these energy efficient LED have in no way helped light pollution. As a matter of fact, they are brighter, and because brighter in the major cities like New York, like Chicago, San Francisco, Toronto, the sky is not visible, but the lights are so bright. And have you ever seen Milky Way now? We used to, when we were kids, used to look in the sky, and the very clear way was there, the Milky Way. But now, in most of the places, you don't see the Milky Way. And that is because of the light pollution. According to NASA, satellite can't see light at wavelength below 500 nanometers, known as a blue light. And that blue light is emitted by our energy efficient LEDs. So, we detect this increasing impact everywhere. And then what's the harm? It affects human beings. It is highly affecting the health. It is going to help increase in obesity, increase in depression, sleep disorders, diabetes, and even breast cancer. Why? The nights are becoming shorter because of the artificial light. The darkness spawns antipathogens at times. I mean, you can't have the complete darkness and you can't have the complete light. So, the behavior of the animals, as far as the negatively affected plants and microorganisms, suffer because of the light pollution. Increased light pollution for many of us has deprived us of the pleasure of seeing the Milky Way. Even look at the skies. The stars, which used to be so profuse, now are not as many as they used to be. A study has revealed that 80% of the world population and more than 90% people in USA and Europe live under highly light polluted skies. More than 1/3 of the world, including 60% of Europe, and nearly 80% of North America is now unable to see the Milky Way, even on a clear night. So when you see the Milky Way next time, if you are able to see it, take it as an opportunity of being able to see a great wonder. But the situation is becoming really dangerous. There's possibility that the factors that demand the transition to sustainable society needs decreased electricity demand, and the desire of the local government should be to reduce the cost of lightning. Why should the lightning be there the whole night? Why should all the buildings be lighted? We have one Earth Day in a year, in March, when the lights are shut off. Why can't we have it on a regular basis? There can be curfew hours. If you're thinking of the safety, the best thing is to have the curfew hours right from 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., whatever you decide. Because this is a pollution which human beings can control. And the danger of light pollution is much more because you cannot escape it wherever you are living. The light pollution is there, especially in the cities which are densely populated. So, there's one city in Arizona, Tucson. What they said was that we will reduce the light, and beauty is in 1970 they could not see the light. And now they can see the light, it's Milky Way. In 1970 they could not see because the Arizona was brightly lit. But Tucson decided, no, this city, we will not have it. They had a curfew. So in Tucson, what happens is at 9:30, all the lights are switched off, and anybody having a light which is visible from outside, you can have heavy curtain so the light doesn't come out. But if it's visible, you are detected. And that has enabled people living in Tucson, Arizona, to see the Milky Way once again. Would you not like to see the Milky Way? I would. It is the birthplace, the Milky Way is the birthplace of the fairy tales, which are so useful to the human beings, as I discussed in the last episode. So this disease X and the light pollution are today emerging the greatest dangers to the human beings. Let's beware. Thank you.